They're some of the country's most vulnerable children, and according to one advocacy group, thousands of kids spend too much time in foster care and wait too long for adoption.
Every year, about 500,000 children in the U.S. are in foster care. That care is supposed to be temporary, and there's a federal law to ensure it is.
But the National Council for Adoption says most states aren't following the law, leaving some children in foster care for years longer than intended.
Investigative reporter Kristen Crowley digs deeper into the issue and finds out what can be done to hold states accountable.
It felt good, and we all had a really good day.
This is a snapshot of what looks like a happy family.
They tell you to smile.
But snapshots don't always show the whole picture.
So how many foster homes did you live in?
7.
What kind of impact does that have on a child?
It's a hurtful process, for lack of better words.
Nearly 3 decades ago, Marcellus Washington, his 4 sisters and brother, were taken away from their home and put into foster care by the state of Kansas. Marcellus says it was clear early on going back to their parents, who he says were neglectful, wasn't an option. Adoption was the plan.
Were you aware of any efforts being made by the state to get you and your siblings adopted?
We were placed up officially for adoption on the Kansas Adopt Us portal when I was approximately 10.
But Marcellus was taken from his parents at age 6, meaning he spent 4 years waiting for a new home that he says couldn't come.
If they were doing a lot to find me placement that was suitable for me, it was not made apparent to me at all.
That was back in 2012. The delay in finding foster children a permanent home, some experts say, has only gotten worse.
Foster care was designed to be short-term, and states are keeping children in far longer than was ever designed, and far longer than Congress intended.
In 1997, Congress passed the Adoption and Safe Families Act, or ASFA, to make sure foster care is a temporary solution, not a long-term one. The law has something called a 1522 provision. It means once a child's been in foster care for at least 15 of the last 22 months and reunification with a parent is out of the question, the state must work to find them a permanent home. Here's why that matters. The longer a child stays in foster care, statistically, the worse their outcome is. They're more likely to be homeless, to struggle in school, and have behavioral issues. But Ryan Hanlon with the National Council for Adoption says too many children are staying in foster care too long and aging out of the system without a family.
When 1 in 5 children is going to spend over 3 years in foster care, when over 10% are being emancipated without any permanency, without any permanent family, we have failed all of those children.
Hanlon says about 22 states complied with moving foster children to a permanent home quickly when AFSA first passed. Now, that number is down to 7.
How did we get here from more than 20 states complying with this to now only 7?
Well, the federal government has shown over the years that there's no consequence for failing to follow these rules.
The Department of Health and Human Services has the power to hold states accountable and could threaten their funding for not following the law. But Hanlon says that's never happened. So we asked HHS. The agency would not agree to an interview and did not answer our questions via email.
The fact that states aren't doing this, it's a failure because our children are left in limbo.
Nebraska Congressman Don Bacon sits on the Congressional Caucus on Foster Youth and says he didn't even know about the issue until we told him. He agrees something needs to change.
Hearing your feedback right now, I will draft a letter ASAP and ask my fellow co-chairs to get aboard, let HHS know we're not satisfied with their response. And they that is their role, is to execute the law and to work with the states. And, right? Our job is to do the oversight, make the law. So we will push them.
But after our interview, the congressman's team said they didn't feel writing a letter would do enough, saying, quote, Representative Bacon has decided not to send a letter as it is clear the law needs to be amended. Our staff is looking into what changes need to be made in the child welfare system. Representative Bacon's office said those changes could include language that lays out specific penalties for states not following the law, something missing from the current legislation. But any proposed changes wouldn't come before the next Congress is sworn in.
If every state were complying with this law, what would that mean for foster care and for adoptions and for children in general?
It would mean children are spending far less time in foster care. They'd be reunifying with birth family faster or being moved towards a permanent family, such as adoption or guardianship, faster.
A lot of luck's involved in foster care, so some get lucky, some don't.
Marcellus considers himself lucky, even though he spent most of his childhood in foster care. At 16, he finally got adopted. Today, he's a successful adult, a psychotherapist who helps foster youth. But he still wonders how life could have been different.
Had you been adopted within a year or two of being put in foster care, you think your life would have turned out better, the same?
I would say better. I'd have trouble thinking that would hurt me in any way, shape, or form.
As many as 10% of foster children will never find a family.
Which is why our coverage of the system and ways to address the problem doesn't end here.
Yeah, we introduce you to a Kansas City couple who created a solution for foster kids that they say is working.
It's about working to get them to the point to where they can go to another employer and be successful.
Randy and I are nice people. Our kids love us. But in general, if a child has an opportunity to grow up with a member of their family, they're going to be far better off than having to mesh with the family of strangers.
The idea they brewed up and their lifelong mission of helping children. You can watch the full story right now on InvestigateTV.com. Just search foster care.